what are your best tips for objection handling because obviously they're probably going to have some subsequent questions after this. They're probably going to sideline you this or sideline you that. What are your best tactics when it comes to objection handling?
Which objection?
Oh, good question. Yeah, we've already got a vendor for this right now.
Okay, so let's talk through a couple of these. So the first problem with objections is that people think they are things that actually are meant to overcome. When in fact, we have a vendor is not an objection. The prospect does in fact have a vendor. It's not when they say I'm not interested, that's not an objection. They really aren't interested because of what you said isn't interesting. Like these are not really objections. These are the prospect's truth, right? So the first idea here that we have to talk about, again, getting back to intent, we always start with intent. Everything starts with the intent, right? We talk about detaching from the cold call. The intent here is to shift away from thinking that objections are even objections. They're more like statements, and they're not things to overcome. They're things to understand. And all objections, they carry one of two meanings. Either the prospect really does have a vendor that they just signed on with, and they're not going to switch because they're on a 2-year contract, or they're saying something just as a way to get you off the phone because it's uncomfortable to tell you the truth. And so they'll say things just to get you off the phone. So the idea with the approach that we could talk about is how do you create an environment where the prospect feels understood and comfortable telling you the truth so that you waste less time chasing? Not as a mechanism to get what you want or to overcome anything, but merely as a mechanism to get to the truth. So that's a kind of fundamental mindset shift. And then from there, something else that I realized several years ago when I was doing a workshop in front of 300 salespeople, as a former elementary school teacher, what I did is I had these math multiplication flashcards. And I said, when I hold up these flashcards, you shout out the answer. So once 5 times 5, everyone shouted out 25, 6 times 5, 30. Then I held this one up. I'm not interested. And it was like deer in the headlights. I'm like, why is that? It's because people haven't practiced what to say. So I created a series of flashcards. They're called tongue-tied. A series of 34 objection flashcards with the objection on the front and what to say on the back. And so you just practice these like you would your math multiplication tables. You're not practicing on your prospects. And an interesting thing happens. And we did this with Joe at Cognizant a couple of weeks ago. We drilled him on a couple of ones that come up on a call all the time. I'm not interested and I'm not the right person. We got someone for that. And when these objections came up, he was calm and he was confident because he had practiced it on the flashcards. And for some reason, sales professionals, not all of them, but most of them don't practice. Like literally, it doesn't take but 5 minutes of practice a day to just drill these in with a buddy, an accountability partner, or even by yourself so you don't get tongue-tied. And so someone says, I'm not interested. What I might say is, that's okay. Or I might say, that's not a problem. So that's just diffusing it, right? Because what the prospect is used to is, oh my God, you're about to try to get me to say something and try to overcome it. So then after that, in a very calm voice, I might say, hey, hey, look, before we get off the phone. So they know hey, we're about to hang up. Is it because your team isn't doing much prospecting? You really have people internally that are doing this? Or do you just hate getting cold calls? Not that I blame you. I sometimes hate getting them too, especially around dinner. And that third one, it's called the rule of 3 in comedy. So Wendy Lieberman has a very famous joke. She goes, I just bought a 3-piece bikini. It's a top for me, a bottom for me, and a blindfold for you. It's expected trait, unexpected trait. I'm just applying that to this. That's all I'm doing here. And what you'll find when you do that is it just creates an opening. And they might say, I'm not responsible for sales training or marketing or any of that stuff. Just I'm not the person. So I'm not the right person. And then you might say, that's okay. Hey, John, I know it's not your job to help salespeople who haven't done their homework, but would you be against pointing me in the right direction? And sometimes they'll say, as in the case with the Cognizant call, You got to speak to, Bob Jones. And then you might say, thank you very much. Would he be bob.jones at act? Yeah, that's his email. Do you happen to have a number for him? I don't. Hey, I know I'm wearing out my welcome here. Would it be okay if I told him you pointed me in his direction? Sure. And now you can actually say, Greg Jones suggested I give you a call. Right. So again, the way you're smooth at this is just to practice on these flashcards, whether they're my cards or some other person's. But I have these 34 objection cards. They're called tongue-tied. And you can actually practice, get a little more confident. And again, just in a very smooth way. If you are hearing "I'm not interested" far too many times, what that means is your script isn't poking the bear the right way, or it's a good script, but you're talking to the wrong person. A lot of times people build lead lists up from Zoom Info. They'll just export a bunch of stuff from Zoom Info. That's the wrong way to do it, because you're just going to get a lot of people that no longer work there, or they're not the right person because you're just going on title. The right way to do it is to actually go into Sales Navigator, select your people, do a little research to make sure they're in the right role, they're still there, and they are in fact overseeing the thing that you help with, and then pull the data from like a Zoom Info, and then give it to this guy, Ryan Reisert. He has a service where he'll actually call down your list and determine the people that will actually pick up the phone. So instead of talking to 1 or 2 people an hour, you'll have like 15 conversations, like we did with Joe and with Cognizant on the Sales Hacker webinar a couple weeks ago. And that's an advantage because the more at-bats you get, the more confident you get. And you kind of get into this flow state.